Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. Hello, everyone. You are tuned to the MC Lars podcast. It is Monday, April 13th. This is episode 85, brought to you by the following Patreon Larsons: James Hogan, Giovanni, and Scott Bowen. And the new ones, Daniel, Jonathan, and Megan. Thank you all for allowing me to keep going with my Marvel songs, my podcast, my YouTube videos. So shout out to all of y'all. And as always, I want to kick off the show with this week's MC Lars Patreon Larson of the week. This week, we hear from Chris Walker in Durham, North Carolina, who talks about how he discovered me through two separate collabs with two very different artists. Chris, take it away.
Hey, my name's Chris Walker. Honestly, I found out about your music thanks to your collaborations. Years ago, a Humble Bundle did a music bundle, and there was a MC Frontal album on there, and your Captains of Industry collab with him was on it. Fast forward to a few years later, and I'm in a Bowling for Soup fan page on Facebook, and somebody posts that there's a collab between you and Jarrett Reddick from Bowling for Soup. Download this song. After hearing you collab with two artists I came to like, I was like, you know what? I need to look into his stuff. Fell in love with your stuff, man. I have your whole discography now. Love it. Thanks, man, for all you do.
Thank you, Chris. I am honored. I have sent you an MC Lars t-shirt. And if you want to be on the MC Lars podcast, leave a message about how you first heard me or a concert or really anything, go to patreon.com/MCLars. If you sign up, you get the secret proprietary phone number, which gets you in to the message machine where I check the messages and I'll hit you back. And if your message is tight, I'll use it on the show and you get a free t-shirt, as well as like over 100 unreleased MC Lars songs you probably haven't heard through the Patreon service. This week's podcast is a little different. I read, there was a great New York Times article on Weird Al's enduring legacy. And I was like, man, I love that article. And I feel like I've been so lucky to work with and meet so many of my heroes and collaborators, and like even, meeting my wife through the music business and like my favorite people and, people I look up to who I was able to build friendships with, and all these weird, strange, free, wonderful people who are able to be themselves. And I was just feeling so grateful about that. And my friend Mike, who I had on the podcast, he's a guitarist, bass player, tour manager I work with a lot, who I've known for like 14 years. Mike was like, we should do an episode of the podcast where I interview you. So I, as in Mike, interview you, as in Lars, about how you write songs and why you do what you do. And I was like, okay. I mean, since he suggested, I was like, I'm down. And I guess he should probably be doing this intro, but there's a lot of business to cover. That's why I'm doing it. So I was like, all right, let's rock it, Mike. So this is Mike's very thoughtful, awesome interview we did remotely a few days ago, and I thought I'd drop it in because it's kind of relevant. But yeah, so this is my interview with Mike Russo. Actually, it's Mike Russo's interview with me on the MC Lars podcast.
All right. How's it going?
So, Mike, you're the host today.
I am the host today. So you are the Joyful Smiles guy. It's a conscious choice to say like, hey, look, kind of no matter what's going on, Joyful Smiles. And I wonder, like, did it start as like a sarcastic, like, oh, CPs, and then over time it became real? Or have you just always had this like sunny outlook?
Well, the first time I heard those two words together, my cousin Stuart, who you met when you stayed with us in Hollywood that one time.
Oh, yeah.
He was talking about Disney. He went to Disneyland and they had a parade where they had fireworks and they had projections of happy children with joyful smiles. And he talked about how it was kind of like corny and silly. And this was, he was like, we were teenagers. And I remember thinking those words together has an air of like, that is such a weird juxtaposition of words.
Yeah.
Right. So I just, with anything to me that feels strange, I kind of just incorporate it and say it a million times to get people's reaction. Cause you add those two words together and it's this whole, juxtaposition of like, is he serious when he says that? Does he actually feel that way? Is he like, is something wrong with him? I always think it's, what's that? Aristotle or someone said it's a wise thing to appear foolish.
Oh, okay.
Someone said that. And I think that, I got everyone on Warped Tour to say it. And like, it's just, on the flip side, I am a Christian and I am someone with faith. And like, I always feel like things will work out.
Yeah.
My life has been, for the most part, pretty good. I've had hard things happen, but things always work out. And so it's part of that bad brains PMA thing, right? The positive mental attitude. It's just my version of that. It's like The Secret, right? If you manifest good things and believe that they will happen, they're more likely to happen than if you don't. And that's not to say all you have to do is just sit in a room saying, okay, I'm going to be a rapper who tours. That's just going to automatically happen. You have to have action too. And I think, you know what I mean? So how's that answer?
I think it's pretty good. And it's funny. I remember you were the first person that ever told me about The Secret. I was sitting in a car. I had just seen the M. Night Shyamalan movie, The Happening, with Mark Wahlberg, where it's like the plants are. This is actually maybe kind of, well, I don't know, but it's like the plants are excreting some kind of like silent pollen that's causing society to go nuts and sort of kill itself. And I don't know, there's a virus aspect to it, but I remember you telling me about it and I was like, I got to run out and get this book. I remember exactly why we said this. This was when they had announced the 2008 Crocs tour, but before you were a part of it.
Right.
And you said, let's use The Secret and let's make sure we get on this Crocs tour.
Hey.
And I was like, all right, let me try this. And so I really did. Like the first thing I ran out, I bought, I bought this like really expensive suitcase because I was like, well, I gotta get a suitcase because I'm going on this trip. So I'm just going to go out and buy a suitcase. And I just started acting like this thing's going to happen. And it did. And it really did. Really did.
It almost didn't.
It almost didn't, despite ridiculous odds. But I mean, it's legit. And I guess, so in a way, The Secret is maybe just another way of saying faith, right?
Yeah, sure. And it's Leyenda, right? That's what Violent J talks about in Behind the Paint. When they were like, we're going to make ICP happen at any cost. We're in it. The Yoda thing, do or do not. There is no try, right?
Yeah.
Like that's big part of the ICP's folklore. It's the whole thing about punk rock. It's like you just do it. Hip hop, you create something from nothing.
Yes.
Pitch anything, relationships, anything. Like you have to have faith. And if it goes wrong, here's another secret, Mike. You can't lose faith in The Secret and you can't become a sour, bitter, jaded person because that can happen. You can become just, in the music industry, it's such a fun thing to talk crap about what bands aren't selling tickets and what flopped and like what's negative. I mean, you just have to sidestep that because that can be all encompassing. I think the negativity that could make anyone not want to be in the music business. I mean, I know you've been around that, Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that maybe people do that the most when they're feeling the most vulnerable about their own position in things.
Totally.
It's, and I think one of the things that's always been great about you, thinking about even Warped Tour and your interaction with the other bands, like everybody was always just happy to see you. You raised, you just raised everybody's spirits when you came around. And so people, it's funny. I mean, it shows you that, cynicism doesn't necessarily get you anywhere. It's like a Band-Aid on something that really needs stitches. It might make you feel better temporarily, but it's not healing you. Were you raised Christian? Have you always kind of had this, or is it something you came to later in life?
Well, that's a good question. I was raised Episcopalian, which is like the American version of the Anglican Church, right?
Okay.
We would go every Sunday, and then I was a acolyte and a crucifer in middle school and high school. That's the person who carries the candles or carries the cross.
Okay.
I would play guitar in the folk masses at our church in Carmel, and middle school and stuff. Maybe I kind of like questioned it, And of course, you're always supposed to question it. I mean, this is another example of like randomness and like things being meant to be. I think you were with us on this tour with Whitey Cracker and MC Chris, like 2009.
Yes.
So John Rubin is a rapper who's like a Christian rapper who was on actually Lars Attacks, who hadn't met yet. And I was trying to get a hold of him and he didn't, it was before Twitter and he didn't have social media. And I was like, one day am going to work with this guy. And this is going to happen. Like I said this a day or two before we got to the venue in Syracuse, and the promoter was like, "Look, I got something for you. This guy left it for you." And John Rubin had a poster. He left it because he saw we were coming, and he wrote, "MC Lars, take me on tour." John Rubin.
I remember that.
So we got the agent's email, and then he and I became like really good friends. That was just me being like, "I'm going to meet this guy." Oh. He was there. You remember that? And Whitey Cracker's like, I have no idea who that is, but I was tripping.
And I didn't know either, honestly, but it was, so what do you think then? Are we on a path or are we choosing where we're going?
I don't know. Like fate is what you make. I don't believe that everything's written down in a book because that would be boring. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We have some agency, and that's the whole thing about free will and Genesis and Adam and Eve, right? Like you choose. You make choices, but the universe doesn't revolve around you. And that's actually a really good thing to know. Cause then you're not so upset when like, if someone doesn't smile at you on the street, it doesn't mean that they don't like you. It just means maybe they're not thinking about you. Not everything is about you. And I think that's an important lesson, So what is that? How does it have to do with free will that like maybe things in hindsight, you can kind of see that things are fated, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I feel like certainly right now, as we're sitting at home, those of us in the music industry who really have no idea when we're going to be working again and what capacity we're going to be working again. Like I've had things happen recently that are so surprising and so out of left field that are allowing me to continue doing this even when there's no work and there's nothing going on. Like I can't help but think that somehow either divinely inspired or karmically inspired. I don't know what, but it's weird. It's like the major things that have made left turns in my life, like even meeting you or finding out about you, like that was something I had no control over.
Friendships, right? A friendship's not going to work unless the two people both see something in the other person that they appreciate and get, and you meeting them at the right time in your life, right? That's why like friendships you make early on sometimes last longer because it's a contextual thing. Like us meeting, we were both growing in our careers and like trying to figure stuff out. And we both realized, oh, this person has a similar perspective. So we had years of memories, and it's timing too, isn't it?
And I love that you have talked about this stuff in your music too, that you've thought about it, it's so, okay. So so yesterday I was watching Disney Plus on my iPad cause we've got nothing but time. And I watched the first Simpsons Treehouse of Horror special.
Oh, Bart as the Raven.
Yes. And I was like, was that the start of it all for you, for those connections?
That, and also there was there's a play, a Peanuts play, a Charlie Brown musical that was at our high school. Like the school we went to in Oakland was like really into the arts and theater, and they did a great play of Peanuts. And there's a song where they're studying for a test, and they sing the song about Edgar Allan Poe. They go, Edgar Allan Poe, as in poetry. And I was like, oh, that's tight. That was like before the Simpsons thing. I remember that. I thought that was awesome. Yeah. And then I was really into like spooky stories, and my mom got me a book of Edgar Allan Poe stories, and and then I think I saw the Simpsons thing. But that was cool because it was like able to, that segment really stands out in the Halloween episode because it's so different, right? Yeah. It's so weird. And it's a little boring if you're a kid, but then later you go back and like, oh, this is pretty dope. This is interesting. Yeah. That was influential on me a lot, for sure. That specific moment.
When you were starting out, you were playing in punk bands, right?
Yeah, I was doing beats and stuff at home, and then I was learning guitar, and then I have friends come over and practice in the garage. And, our first show, 7th grade, we did a cover of Better Than Ezra's song Good but we made it about a fat person. We call it Rolls, about someone who's just eating all day. So like stupid, but pretty clever, I guess. And we played that. And then I was doing original songs and people weren't trying to hear the original songs. Then ska became a thing and hardcore became a thing. So that band was called Horace. New guys. We played a New Year's festival and the singer was like, yeah. And then it was the Millennium. He's like, I don't want to work on the Millennium. I want to party. I'm not going to do a concert on the Millennium. So I was like, okay, well, I'll start a new band. So then Amphoteric with Tim, who was one of the best men at the wedding with you, we started that band and that was like a punk band. The drummer, Dan, now plays guitar for Avril Lavigne and bass for Glassjaw.
Oh, that's amazing.
So Dan Ellis is his name. And so we played a few shows and then the members changed and then I left and that band kept going without me. But I would open for them sometimes doing the MC Lars thing. Back then I called it MC Lars Horace. And it was a way to build my audience off of this small audience we built in Central California. But I learned about booking shows. I learned about promoting, like getting people to come, talking to people. Yeah. And we didn't play a lot. And if that band had been bigger, I think it would be a more interesting story. But that taught me about, the other thing it taught me is that it's annoying to have to like write songs by committee and organize rehearsals. But all the dudes in that band were really hardworking and great. I mean, for professional, but yeah, man. So that's kind of a long answer, but I love that I could eventually make music on my own and then dovetail this project on Amphoteric's like local, whatever notoriety in that our few friends knew about it, Yeah.
So in that sense, then in a way, like making beats and playing in bands really did seem like they happened at the exact same time.
Yeah, they did because it was like kind of, there were not a lot of role models about how you could do it as a one person act. Right. And then, but then that's why hip hop is interesting. And that's around that time. That's when I discovered Paul Barman and Wesley Willis and Adam and His Package. Yeah. And John from King Missile, like CMJ, we had a radio station at our high school cause it was like a really nice like resource we had. And then we'd go to this conference in New York as 16-year-olds and be like, just allowed to run around New York and interview bands and go to shows. Yeah. And that's when I met Paul Barman and John from King Missile and Wesley Willis. And I interviewed them all for my radio show. And that's where Wesley Willis said the sample that's on True Player for Real. I gave him my CD and he said, I'm going to make an album called This Gigantic Robot Kills. And then like 3 years after he died, he never made that record. So, but the whole punk rock thing of being able to do it on your own was a realization. And when, I learned that no one will be as committed to your music as you will be. And so that's why being able to make music yourself and be the person who runs the project. If you're the one with the dominant energy, I quickly learned none of my friends were like as insanely dedicated to music. And I think the fact that I had friends who would cancel like Saturday morning rehearsals and stuff was like, okay, well, fine. Like I'm not going to cancel on myself. And Nine Inch Nails and Weird Al obviously were big influences, but I thought speaking of The Secret, I remember thinking one morning how Trent Reznor I was waking up a Saturday. I remember this clearly, how he'd made all these records pretty much on his own with like help from other engineers with his Mac, back in the day. And I was like, I am going to, I remember I said this in my head, I'm like, I'm going to do the similar thing with my computer and make a music career and make a living off of it one day. I don't know how, but I think I'm going to try to do it. I believe that I can. Trent Reznor did. And so I can. And I remember I had that memory and it's like, imagine if my bandmates and my other bands had been like more dedicated or more like invested, you and I maybe would have never met. Right?
Well, it's interesting. First of all, just as an aside, I think you're the only person who has ever been like, because of Nine Inch Nails and Weird Al. Two talented dudes who had great vision and like musical talent and made brands based on like the niche they occupied. Yes. Very different though, right? Pretty different.
Yeah. Right.
But that's an interesting point because one of the things that I remember about you from the beginning was that you were not afraid to basically just pick up musicians from anywhere for a gig coming up. Like there was in the beginning, I mean, there's never really been a consistent band. No, it's not. And honestly, I feel like that's one of the things that has made you so special. And one of the things that I think because you got into like punk music and hip hop at the same time makes you so different than guys like me who just kind of came from a band background, is that you can sort of like chaotically jump into something that is unknown in a way that would make most people too uncomfortable. And you've got enough talent and you've got enough like just run with itness that you kind of let that happen.
Thanks, Mike. You know what I thought, and what I realized that like has a lot of power is making a statement, no matter what that statement is more important than just trying to like copy what might sound good to the ear. Like Wesley Willis, he's not, it's not necessarily typically good, but it makes a statement of like, this is so different and weird and inventive. Or Adam and His Package, like, wow, his singing is a little annoying, but like the fact that he's pulling it off, like the medium is the message, right? The aesthetics of what you create is more important than the finished project, because like it's more important to make a statement. And I think being not afraid of being bad is okay, because then you'll have the occasional good song. Like it took me so long, dude, to make anything that I think like I would still be proud of, and realizing like what, you know, I'm not the best singer, but I have good rhythm.
Yes.
So maximizing my strengths. So you only can do that by like making a lot of horrible music. I put out like probably 10 CDRs of bad stuff that I don't think even you've heard, that like not funny, like covers, horrible, out of tune. I remember I did a cover of Bush's Glycerine.
Oh yeah.
So bad, dude. I think if anyone heard that, I'd lose like half my fans. Like horrible. But only by doing, right, like the 10,000 hours thing.
Yes.
Only by doing tons of horrible flavor could you make that flavor work. And I think the other thing about collaboration is that it's always been, whenever I've collaborated, it worked because it's always been like, well, you're helping me with my project.
Yes.
This is not our project. Yes, you'll get publishing or you'll get royalties or I'll pay you for this session. But as soon as anyone's been like this, like been a little too, I don't know, precious or dominating or like try to show me ego or something, like I don't rehire them. And that's just something, because I believe in myself too much to like give up more than I need to. And you've witnessed that, like with collaborators, like that's the business sense. And that's what I've learned about being a good business person, because you have to pay people, you have to make sure they feel happy, but you also have to let them know that like they're helping you. And if that gets lost, and if they're, people need to know their place. And when I've done guest verses, I never try to take commands of the project, but if someone wants me to do a guest verse and I don't want to do it, I'll say I don't like that concept. Like having belief in yourself is important.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. You want to be open to collaboration, but not forgetting that you're still, at the end of the day, it's your name on this thing. So it is your thing, and nobody else is going to be like, well, his collaborator really made that song suck. They're going to be like, no, that song sucks. And but you got to put your foot down and be like, no, this is what you have very good taste in picking. Well, I will say is in all the pickup bands that I saw you put together, you've always had incredibly interesting people want to work with you, because I think they can feel this like adventure spirit of,
Thanks, Mike.
So in 2000, what was it? Lest we forget the tour after
the Taco Bell tour.
Yes, the Taco Bell tour.
So what happened with that is that Joe from Patent Pending showed me, if you write an essay for Taco Bell and apply for a grant, it's this thing called Feed the Beat, and you get coupons for $5. But we realized if you buy something that's like $5.01, they had to give you change, $4.99. Okay. So we figured out how to get change from the coupons, and now they would do it where like you just get a card, you swipe.
Yeah.
But we were just all eating Taco Bell for so long. $500. It was like we all gained so much weight. It was so right.
Well, I remember I only was on a couple shows for that, but I met you guys in Wilkes-Barre, and we like went to like an Applebee's or something, and everyone was like, "Oh, thank God we are not going to Taco Bell today."
I mean, I was feeding them for free, but like it was not much. It was like, yeah, Taco Bell, dude. It's so gross. I can't even. Ugh. They have good vegan stuff, but also like, ugh. Please.
So
anyway, Roos, we're having fun. We're laughing.
We are having fun. So, one of the things that I think has about you that I think is really unique, and it ties into this fearless nature of yours, is that unlike a lot of us that really belabor things or overdo them, you seem to be able to kind of work very quickly and then like kind of catch the initial spark and then move on to the next thing.
Right.
So I know we didn't talk about this last time, but there was a day we spent in Philadelphia in maybe 2007 where we went to the Franklin Institute and we were tooling around, and then we went that night and we went at our hotel room. We wrote the music for Bruce Campbell. So I had this like little guitar thing that I had recorded first, and then we were in this hotel room. We had like some kind of MIDI keyboard, and you were like, watch this. And you wrote the beat for the song in like 5 minutes. You were like, just watch this. I think you're going to like it. And then we like hummed a keyboard part and just played it. And then I was like, okay, you should play something on guitar. And you said like, I'm just going to hit record and just play the first thing you think of, which is like the last thing I would have ever done left on my own devices. And the funny thing is then we used the thing that you just said, well, just go for it, you know? And that was fascinating to me that you could just do something so spontaneously.
And that's the thing. I find like when you're a good player and a good rapper or whatever, the first or second take are typically the best, because after that, you're going to rethink it. You're not going to have the magic. Like, for example, like what's an example of that? On Where You Been, Lars, the first track on Robot Kills, that's the first take. And I just did it on a mic in my studio, and I retried it a million times. But there's something about that Zen mind first thing. And you kind of know, right? Have you ever heard of a band called the KLF?
Oh yeah, man. Dude, I love The White Room was like one of my favorite tapes when I was a kid.
Does that have the Doctor Who, the TARDIS? It's like a remix of that Gary Glitter.
Okay.
That song? So they did a version. It's like Doctor Who, hey, the TARDIS, Doctor Who. And it's like early nerdcore thing, but it's like 70s. Anyway, you should read this, Mike, and anyone listening. It's called The Manual. Okay. And my friend Rob, who's a producer, scientist who lives in Monterey, who's a friend of Whitey Cracker, told me about this book. He basically talks about having the ability to like not be precious and have the instinct to like have a bird's eye view and know when the gems are good in what you create and know when they're not, and like writing a lot and then just put everything on the wall, then come back and like what Bukowski said, you don't know if anything's good until you record it and write it. Bukowski, in his case, you write it and then you come back 2 weeks to check it out. And I think that was what's, Tom, my first manager, like one of the things he taught me was 21 Concepts. The song is kind of about this. You just write and create. And you know instantly if something's good, you know instantly if something's okay, and you know instantly if something's bad. But instead of like trying to make something bad good, he had this metaphor where like if, in war, like if your friend is hurt and there's bombs going off around you, you have to know when to leave your friend on the battlefield because you're going to die too. Like you have to know, like that's kind of maybe trivializing a war story, but like to know when a song is not going to be, it's not salvageable. You work on to the next thing. And that's important, man. That's something I learned. And the only way you can do that and be so flexible is to know how to work Logic and Ableton and know how to work the programs. Cause then you're not running up the bill trying to like a million ideas. Like I knew that riff was special and cool. And I knew the idea of like a metal song about cannibalism and zombies would fit because it had like a horrorcore ICP kind of vibe. And, only two things work with music. The music has to match the feeling of your thesis, of your chorus, and like has to evoke emotional connections, whether it's a pop culture thing or like a personal thing, or it has to be the exact opposite. Like you could have a really sad beat and do something like really happy lyrics about bunnies or something with a sad beat. That's funny. Or like a really happy beat where you're talking about the COVID-19 or something. Like maybe not right now you would release that. but you can't have like a kind of happy beat and like a kind of sad lyrics. No, it has to be extreme for it to work in my experience.
Yeah, it's like the They Might Be Giants.
I mean,
method.
I guess.
Yeah, like happy music, and like when you actually read that, you might even be singing along to the chorus and not thinking about it. And when you read the lyrics on paper with no music, you're like, this is horrific.
Yeah, they are great lyricists.
Well, maybe it's time we talked about the carnival in the room.
Yes.
ICP, you love them, I love them. Why do you, or when did you start to love them?
You know, I used to love the Jerky Boys. I still do. Mm-hmm. And I had this website where I'd review prank calls.
Okay.
And I had this rare Jerky Boys tape that had a few calls on it that were like really foul, and inappropriate, and like really, they're not commercial. So I had a website. I used my mom's like 20 megabyte web space on her santacruz.net/tilde K Nielsen/prankcall.html. I learned how to code when I was like 12.
Yeah.
And no, there weren't a lot of prank call websites about like reviewing tapes or like fan pages for the Jerky Boys. So my site ended up in this, you know, back in the day, I don't remember if you remember this, but they used to have like web directories, like the yellow pages you could buy.
Okay.
And I remember this was like so cool. Like this book about websites had a section on mischievous fun, and my site was there as like the recommended best prank call page. I remember I went to the bookstore at the mall as a 12-year-old, and there's my website in this book.
That's awesome.
And I was like, oh, something I did on the computer in my mom's office is, you know, she wasn't really happy because she'd get emails and stuff. And anyway, so I would trade prank call tapes. And this dude in Michigan, Chris Van Horn, who had been a roadie for ICP, he later joined the Army. He was a DJ. He was like a year older than me. He made prank calls too. And he'd send me tapes, but then at the end, he'd put music, you know, because it's 90 minutes. Not every prank call tape was 90 minutes. Some were.
Yeah.
But there was, I don't know if you remember the song Super BALLS.
100%.
And there's that prank call at the beginning where he goes, I'm only make music. That's from a tape called Great Phone Calls. And you know who the voice is? This is going to blow your mind. This is going to flip your wig back. It's Mike Patton doing that prank.
Really?
Yeah. Because Mike Patton put out Neil Hamburger's prank call record, Great Phone Calls, which I have on vinyl, which is so funny. It's so good. But Mike Patton and Neil Hamburger made a prank call record. So Chris was like, I recognize this. He would leave little audio messages for me on the tape. And he goes, you know, I recognize this voice. And I thought it was from this. And he played the ICP song. So anyway, so this was before Malenko. And then he would send me their songs, and he sent me the Mutilation mix. And like, I'd send him like $20 in an envelope, and then he'd mail me. I remember he sent me Ringmaster, and it was like, you couldn't find that in the malls in Monterey in 1995, you know?
Yeah.
But 97, sure, when the MTV thing happened in Disney. So I got really into it because I felt like it was an underground Midwest thing. Like people in California didn't really know ICP as that well. I was really into underground music. I liked rap, but it was like, I liked the stories. Junior year, we went to see them. And it was just like, wow, a hip hop show can be this like over the top, theatrical, fun, and bad in that like they couldn't really sing, but they could rap. Yeah. and I liked, and that it was funny, and it became, I felt like this underground thing. And then I don't know, the whole thing about the Six Jokers card and the Wraith, and then getting to play the Gathering and meet those guys, and meeting with people who are juggalos too, like you and my one of my best friends, DJ. Like that.
Yeah.
But I liked ICP, and I still do, because of their ability to be smart with their business, their love of hip hop, and their ability to motivate and tell a story. And I know that juggalos get a bad reputation, and like the whole magnets thing, haha, Shaggy's not a PhD physicist. We get it. Hilarious. But like, that's so played out, right? The whole thing about making fun of juggalos is just a way to make fun of poor white people. And
yes.
They were different, and they weren't afraid to be different, and they were smart, and they hit at the right moment. Like Weird Al, like he's genius, but like what made him a legend was that he was able to parody videos at a time when that was a new art form, and he got permission from Michael Jackson, and MTV needed content. It was his brilliance interacted with the timing. Same with MC Chris, great rapper, funny guy, like good writer, but Aquatine, and that gave him his platform. Frenalot, Penny Arcade, you know, it gave him his platform. Like, I'm very interested in about why things happen in the way they do. God, that was a long answer.
I was watching the Netflix just put out the Mark Twain Prize, award ceremony for Dave Chappelle, besides doing clips of him doing stand-up. And there's a moment when he uses a quote from Robin Williams that says that one of the things about stand-up that's so special about it is it's like one of the few art forms where you can use everything you know in it. And one of the things that I think is so interesting about you is that you found a way, really from, maybe not from day one, but from day like I became aware of you, you use everything you know. I honestly don't think I ever saw a performer in a musical context use the video screens with videos that they had all put together themselves to sync along with all of the songs. I mean, where did that come from? I really don't remember anybody else doing that before you.
Oh yeah.
And it was a huge pain in the ass to do back then too. It was not easy.
Or this, like that show we played in the graduate show, Mercury Lounge, like the Christmas show. We had to rent the screens, and then it was too close to the light and it burned it. So I had to pay extra $300. Like, I saw this guy Tim Fight do it once at a show when I first came to New York in the beginning of 2006, and that was a magical time, man. Because early 2006, like I was just out of college and I was renting a room in Williamsburg for $400 with a porch. Like that would be 2 roommates, but like it was such that was crazy. You were at that apartment, I think. Probably.
Oh yeah. The one with the rooftop deck.
So Frank Boren, who directed Download This Song, his brother was a New York guy who would like go to a lot of shows, and we started hanging out, and he took me to see Tim Fight, who was a rapper in a group called Little T and One Track Mike. I don't know if they were on Atlantic. They had a song called Shanika Don't Live Here No Mo. Shaniqua don't. Do you know that about this guy who moves in and this woman who used to live there named Shaniqua? He has her landline and everyone calls for her, and it's like a novelty song, but it was dope. Yeah. Like their record was called Fome is Dape, Fame is Dope, right? Like a flip on that, and I loved that in college. And Tim Fight went solo. He had a show where he was rapping or singing, but behind him he just had his art or pictures projecting randomly. And I'd seen like Weird Al and people with like big, huge video setups, but I was like, oh, back then it was kind of rudimentary, but like if you get a VGA projector, the trick was going to be syncing it with the material, with the music. And then, what I'd do is I'd go in iMovie and make burn a DVD of the entire set, which was less likely to shake. So we just run the whole set from a DVD player. The mono would go to the house, and then the click track would go to the drummer. And it was fun because it gave something extra, but man, what a pain. And like some venues, it didn't work. And I would stop doing it, but then we brought it back for the MC Chris 2011 tour with 2 screens and the full band. And like, if you do it well, it's dope. And now it's easier to like do screens. I haven't done a screen in a while, but that was like, just like, how do you make just rapping along to a laptop somehow interesting? Because I'm not winning any 8 Mile rap battles. It's not like the songs were like pop hits really, other than like some small radio play. So how do we get this to be an interesting like element? And so that was the videos, I think, started at that show, and then they kept going on and off for a while. And one day, if this gets to the point where I want to do videos again, because I think the trick is not just playing the music video, but showing like a visual interpretation of it. That makes it, that's the key.
And you would add in your own little drawings to it, and you would put clips of lyrics. And, especially at that time when I was helping to produce a lot of live rap shows. Right. The one thing that I noticed with most live rap shows was that a lot of times the venue sound is not great. Right. Sometimes people are rapping really fast. If you didn't already know the song, if you saw a group for the first time, you would have no idea what they were talking about. You would have no clue what the song was about. Maybe you'd glean something from the chorus, but you would miss all the verses. But what I knew was anytime anybody saw you for the first time with the screens, they knew what every single song was about. There was like an audio visual presentation together. So they would get video of it. They would see clips of the lyrics at times you would sing along. They would see that, and it let everybody get it right away. Yeah. And I think that was really, really, that was super ahead of its time.
Thanks, Mike. Did we do that? We did that on the Crocs tour, didn't we? 2008.
Yes. Yeah.
Did we do it when we opened for Nas? Probably not. We were just in and out, right?
No, we had video for Nas.
Okay. Well, shoot, that worked great. And then,
just because they can understand it doesn't mean they're going to like it.
have you seen Fast and the Furious?
A long time ago.
You know how they have these buttons that make the cars go fast? It's Nas and NOS.
Yeah.
Our Nas button puts us in reverse.
It does. And it gets us off that stage fast. I've never looked out at 2,500 people and been like, wow, they all hate this.
Well, the thing was, then we brought out Friend a Lot, and that's when everyone like lost it, like they hated it. But they wanted us off, but then Nas wasn't on for 2 more hours.
That's
so like,
right.
what do you want? Just nothing? Just to stand there, you jokers?
Well, and if we hadn't been there because the production company had brought the wrong turntable and Nas said that they couldn't perform because they didn't have the right turntable. But earlier that day, I had left my guitar at the hotel lobby after the Lilac Festival in Rochester. So when I got to Connecticut, I had to find a backline company that I could rent a guitar from for the day, which they let me do. And then it was being able to call that guy and be like, hey, do you have any turntables?
Wow.
It's the only reason Nas ever played that show.
So he wouldn't have performed.
He wouldn't have performed otherwise. So we did save the show. We took one for the team, as it were. And Nas definitely never realized that. But that is 100% the only reason that show ever happened.
Wow. But it's like, come on, man. Nas, that's a guy who doesn't need a lot of production. I remember it was just him and his DJ, but those records are so classic. I mean, you get to a point, but then like Eminem, for example, you know, he has a huge band, great production, like a full band. Dre, when he plays, I mean, Jay-Z, I guess it depends on, I guess if Nas, if you were making 30, 40 or 100 grand, he would have a band.
He was making a lot of money and he didn't care about having a band.
Nas is one of those guys who's like a legend, but it's because Illmatic is such a great record. And he's had a few other great records, but like timing, talk about timing. He's a great writer though. He's more of a writer than a showman. I don't know.
Yeah, well, and it's something that I think a lot of musicians who are lucky enough to have a long career face, which is how do you face your own legacy? How do you, if you've put out an album that everybody thinks is classic, how do you top it? Do you top it? Do you try?
Axl Rose. You know who didn't do that was ICP. I mean, the fact that they did the second deck, like like the Calm and maybe the Tempest aren't their strongest, like between the decks. They could have let Malenko define them, and they kind of do this nostalgic like anniversary tours, but. You know, they didn't, they could have peaked and they didn't. I mean, I guess maybe they peaked in terms of like get attendance at the gathering, but in terms of like their creative influence and their connection to their fans, they never stopped. And I think I look to that model for sure. Like that's important, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I guess that's, you know, that's one of the things that proves artists who aren't gimmicks. It's like, it's easy to just say like ICP is a gimmick. It's easy to say, well, doing pop culture songs is a gimmick, but as you get older and as you have more experiences, if you're able to translate that into the art that you're making, then you're moving beyond all those things, you know, and you really have a point of view. And I think that what's so cool about you is that, you know, you can draw these cool little cartoons. You have these great rapping ideas. You're interested in literature and learning and all. And it's like you have a way to put forth kind of, like the Dave Chappelle, the Robin Williams quote, like you are using kind of everything that is you comes out in any one of the outlets that you do. If you draw a comic, that's definitely you. If you make a song, it's automatically, everybody knows the moment they hear something if it's yours, which is a really hard thing to accomplish.
Thanks, Mike. I think that is hard, and that becomes like not just being a rapper who showed up at the studio and was given a chorus and the beat, right? And that, when that happens, I think it's hard to sustain it. Or having, I don't know. I think about that, like success, how that can hurt people, but also it can, like Wheatus have an iconic song has given them the license to do weird, very uncommercial, strange, self-produced records for the past 15 years and still make money off that. So, which is dope. So yeah, being able to be consistent, but also take chances is a really important balance.
Yeah. And I mean, it's something that you still do. And I think that your attitude of just make a lot of stuff and then weed out what's good or not later is one of the things that's going to help you continue on that path, because you're not, unlike me or a lot of musicians who can just sit around and it takes so long to even like, oh, I'll start, but first I got to do this and first I got to this. And I can't start a song because I don't have a riff or I don't have, it's like the ability to just jump into something and let it form as it moves along is not a skill that everybody has. And I think it's one of the things that's going to keep you going forever. As long as you want to do this, you're going to be able to do it.
I appreciate that. And I also think it's interesting how, I wasn't ever huge really on YouTube. Like my biggest videos were posted through my old management company, or like some that happened to like Flow Like Poe get, a few 100,000 views, but I never was like a YouTuber like Mac Lethal who used that as a channel. And I think for a minute that was kind of frustrating to like try to get more YouTube views. But I realized that YouTube kind of changed, and now Spotify has become like a more powerful destination for getting new fans. And Spotify, if you put out enough stuff, the algorithms and the fans let you know which your best songs are, which is kind of cool. Like you just put out enough that it's okay. Put out 4 records in a year. The best 3 songs will be in your top 10, and that's the one people will hear. And so it's not like it used to be you had to please someone who would like then have a relationship at iTunes and this and that, or like do the right freestyle rap about pancakes over a Chris Brown beat like Mac Lethal did to like to be able to not have to be on a Rhyme Sayers. Like you always had to please so many people, and now all you have to do is like make stuff that's good enough for you and make a lot of it. And thank goodness for stuff like Patreon, because it obviates some of the financial pressure. And I think I've been really lucky with like how my workflow has been buoyed like a boat, like a buoyed by the changing in new media economics, and how the fans have always found what I'm doing. And I can't believe how lucky that is, and how fortunate that is, and how grateful I am. And I really give as much time as I can to them all the time. And I think you really have to be good to your fans, and you can't ever expect them to be there because they have no reason to support you. It's a miracle that one person cares about your stupid music, you're never better than them, and you exist for yourself and for their enjoyment. And if you make a penny from investing $100,000 into your own music, you are like fortunate. So quit whining and quit. That's my theory. Like, don't be negative. Some artists get negative if they see their draw decrease.
Yeah.
But guess what? You're lucky that even 50 people want to see you. So anyway, that's a tangent.
It's true. Well, and I think that Patreon's kind of a cool, you're self-motivated in a way that I think a lot of artists are not. And I feel like, I don't know this for sure, but this is why I'll ask. So what is your day? Do you actually structure what you're going to do each day? Does it change by day, or do you have kind of a routine?
That's a good question. I try to exercise every morning. Like today, I ran 4 miles, running a mile in 11 minutes. I used to take me 13, 14 minutes to run a mile. So
congratulations.
Thank you. So I try to exercise. I come at home and do I have a 7-minute Apple Watch workout of like push-ups and stuff, which is cool. Mm-hmm. I recommend that app. And then, the first thing I got to do is like today where I was working on some story ideas for a project I'm doing. I got to do that in the first few hours, because by noon it's going to be ordering contact lenses, health insurance, paying bills, social media. There's the magic like 2 or 3 hours where like my brain is the best, Yeah. So between 9 and noon, and then I eat lunch and do business stuff. And then in the afternoon is when I perfect stuff or edit podcasts, or I've been doing like my streaming freestyle stuff or YouTube, the Hatchet Chats. So, but I have to do my creating early, because at night it's like you second guess things and you're not as good. So how about you? When do you like to write music, or do you have a system for that? I like to write music whenever somebody else is around, which is rare to never these days. But my creative time was always really late at night. But I think for the same reason that you are thinking early in the morning, which is like there's no distraction. Certainly in the music business, no one's trying to get a hold of you at 8:00 in the morning. That's true. So it's like it's a good undisturbed time when
you're feeling fresh. And I think that it's really smart that you get up and exercise first, because then your blood's going. You're probably firing on all cylinders in that way, you know?
Yeah. And I think that like, then it's not in your head, oh, I need to exercise today, because suddenly it becomes 6 o'clock and you're like, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. You know?
Yeah.
It's important. And during the quarantine, like we've been fortunate enough that there's a area where I can run. I think if we were still in Brooklyn, you know, I'd be going crazy.
Yeah.
I'd be tripping.
Yeah.
So I think it's hard to do, but you know, I go to sleep early. I'm one of those guys who tries to be in bed by 10 or 11 every night, even when I'm home. And cause that way I can get up at 6. And I think that's just I'm a morning guy, and I know a lot of people aren't. And I know like on tour, morning becomes 1 or 2 p.m. And that's always been hard because you don't get to the hotel by 6 a.m., 5 a.m. That's when you eat your like giant cheeseburgers meal. Like it's late. Like it's just so, I like being home, and like, it's hard to write on the road it's hard to write on the road. I never really have written anything great other than maybe the Bruce Campbell thing, but that was just, I can produce beats and collaborate, but I can't write lyrics. When I don't know if you remember when I was trying to do the book proposal on the MC Chris tour, like that's just it's hard, man. And that book never got bought, and it was a good experience, but yeah, I like being home because I can work on creative projects. My whole thing is like figuring out what to prioritize. So I prioritize the podcasts and the Patreon, and that's really what takes up most of my time. And so that's kind of, once I get those out of the way, then I try to do other projects and stuff. But that takes up most of my time, which is cool. It's my job. I love it.
Yeah, and it leaves your evenings free to just live a life and enjoy time with Ash or do whatever, you know.
Yeah,
which
man.
is good too. It's, you know, I know deep down that the way you're doing it is the right way to do it. And I just kick myself because I'm not a morning person, but I just, like so many successful people, that is their story, is getting up early, and it's like, oh God, I know it's right, but I just don't want to do it.
You know what helps? No, it was a huge tree. It's just when you're not drinking, you're like energy in the morning, and drinking can like give you energy and you stay up late, and it's fine when you're 20.
Yeah.
But when you wake up and you're 34, you know, it's like, or anything else that's like that you medicate to calm yourself down with eating tons of sugar. You know me, I used to love Red Bull and Mountain Dew and burritos and like, okay, fine, that's fine. But then you're not going to be as sharp the next day. So that is important. Or not eating meat and stuff. Like I wouldn't say that it's whatever, like meat's fine, I guess, if people want to eat it, but like being careful about why you consume the things you do. Is it to make yourself feel calm and take away sadness? Or is it a way to sustain yourself? And man, that's what's up.
Yeah. Why do we do anything, right? Are any of our actions, are they masking something we're insecure about, or are they actually propelling us forward? And it takes some real self-reflection to figure that out.
So the past few years, I started seeing a therapist every week. And he taught me more about like how to be in touch with my emotions and how to be able to communicate your needs to your friends, the people you love, and making sure that they have to consent to agreeing that it's okay for you to share how you feel. That's the mature thing, to be able to express your emotions and not feel bad about having boundaries. That's important. I think I was been bad about that because I always wanted to like make everyone going back to the Joyful Smiles thing, make everyone happy. And I think that came from like realizing that like as a kid, you know, if you make your family laugh or entertain them or like do well academically was another thing for me, that everything's fine. And that kind of gets like rid of any drama or stress that can mask things if you're not honest, you know?
Yeah. There's always a reckoning at some point. And if it goes on too long, that reckoning can be pretty substantial.
I think men, especially in their 30s and 40s, it's a common thing to like bottle up emotions. And I think it's important to be able to express that. And so that's why music's important, especially as you get older, to write, to listen to, because it's hard. Life is not easy.
It's friends like you that inspire me to keep taking chances, and we can also talk to each other and support each other through this stuff.
Yeah, man. Music is the most special thing about music to me, is the people it's brought me in my life. And it's allowed me to create a life that on my own terms. And I think that's like a huge blessing. And have people who I love who like, everyone at the wedding basically was there because they're close friends through music industry, at least on my side, or through some capacity of that. And that is more important than I'd rather have that than millions of dollars. I'm happy with what I have, and I'm happy with the people in my life. And I think huge success can be hard on people. And I'm glad that I've had enough little success to keep my real friends and keep going.
Yeah.
That's all I ever wanted. And that's tight.
That is, man, it's amazing. It's same way, man. Music's brought me almost every important person in my life who I didn't grow up with. You know what I mean?
Like Joe Ollinger.
Like Joe Ollinger, like Rob Piccinini Jr., like JTL.
David Bromberg.
That's right. I mean, it's everybody. It's amazing. And I think that certainly in a time when social media, so many people put forth images of themselves that are not necessarily accurate to make themselves feel better. Or you walk outside, you won't walk outside the house unless you're dressed a certain way because you don't want people to see you maybe more normal. And I think this is a time when I really cherish the friends that you can be open and honest around and not have to worry about, it's okay for me to sound like a jackass to you. It's okay for me to be wrong about something. I don't have to worry that one thing is going to suddenly crash the whole friendship. It's like there's a freedom of that then allows us to talk in a way that,
sacred.
Yeah. Because you can then really get to stuff that matters.
I think some of the first relationships I made in the music industry were with people who I felt like if I did the wrong thing, the whole castle would crumble. That was always on. And that was because the gatekeepers had more power in 2004, 3, they did. You really needed people to open doors for you. And it was, my whole career has been about finding the people who are truly my friends, who will be there no matter what. Eva's a great example. My manager, she's so I don't know if it's being a woman, she's nurturing and she's loyal and wonderful, but I never worry that I'm going to put out the wrong song and she's going to email me and say, yeah, we're done. I can't book you any more tours. Or oh, that last Marvel song sucks. Sorry, brother. That was scary. That's scary when your creative output, all your friendship and everything is resting on that. And that's not enviable. And I know young artists might be worried about that, but I also think maybe with social media, they do have more power.
It's like you can bounce from place to place very quickly. You'll be able to do traditional media stuff fine. It's all the same people are all still working. So I think that there's a lot to be learned from what it means to stick around for a while.
Well, you know what it is? It's being able to have fans that don't care about the platform, but care about you. That's the defining thing. And it's true. It's true. And as YouTube changes and everything changes, I mean, it's it can be great to have something go viral, but you have to be able to have something that exists beyond that. And I think that comes down to the touring.
Yes.
Having a live show and having people feel like it's part of a community and that they want to go see you. That's really the defining thing. I was so pleased and blown away by how many people came to see us on the February tour. And thank God it was before all the Corona stuff, because I think people are going to be scared to go to shows for a bit, but it gave me a representation if you package this right and go out with the right other acts, it's a thing that exists beyond these mercurial platforms. And that, as much as I've had beef or frustration with nerdcore, is the most amazing thing about what Front a Lot helped to brand is this culture of people and this weird subsection of hip hop that's not corporate, that's not whatever. It's just old men who put out rap songs about computers from 20 years ago. That that's cool that enough people care about that. And now it's become young people of color, people of different genders, non-binary people. That's dope. That is so dope. And so, it's DJ now is does investment consulting for an accounting work. And he talks about, you want to diversify your portfolio. You don't want all your stock in Facebook. That's a good point. You don't want all your audience to be on Instagram. I think being a designer and knowing what's funny and doing parody art and stealing all sorts of intellectual property and all that stuff, that's having edgy, weird merch is so important. And so that Dead Milkman, the cow with the eyes crossed out, that's legendary. You want to have those visual things. And or the Nirvana face, like that's
Yeah.
important. That's so important. And yeah. And if you do those things, it doesn't matter what new media platform you're using.
If you have a point of view and again, you're using everything you know in your merch, you're using everything you know. It's like everything that you put out has an aesthetic that's yours. And it's not just the music, although I definitely agree with the music theory thing. And as much as whether you know traditional theory or not, it's just, if you take the time to identify what sounds in your head you like, and you just find whatever process allows you to make whatever sounds in your head you like become a thing, whether that's like learning what the chords are or learning how to manipulate logic or learning whatever, just to be able to make the sounds you hear real.
Or to communicate to someone you trust who will at a reasonable rate, or because they love you, help you learn that. I mean, if you're a rapper, learn how to produce. Like, that is the only advice. If you're a rapper who's like struggling with your career or trying to get started, spend a week learning Logic. Like, I know, Mike, you asked me, like, how do you make beats? Yeah. And I was like sending you resources, and that's important. You have to have that curiosity.
I love hearing how you structure your day. I really do. I think that's so important. And I love hearing how you arrived at, the idea of pursuing hip hop, because sometimes dealing with a band is just a pain in the ass, which is like a universal truth. And how somebody needs to be steering the ship, and you need to have the overall tastemaker, and you need to, and if you're in that band, you need to be able to trust the overall tastemaker. And I think that's the thing that has come through. One of the things I always realized when I would write my own stuff versus when I would work on stuff with you is like, you were just always generating initial ideas that were just cooler, just more interesting than things I would come up with on my own. And it was like, why can't I think of those things? And it's like, oh, that's because this is you. Like, the things that make Andrew, like, nobody else can do you except you. And I think it's cool that when you are able to, and I think a lot of artists could benefit from the self-reflection of this. I'm also sort of embarrassed to say that this has a lot of parallels with Project Runway that we've been watching.
Being a designer is so much about your brand and your confidence in yourself.
I mean, Violent J's,
that's huge, right? That's
I think so too. I mean, he even says in his book, he's like, look, I'm like a 9th grade dropout. Do you think I could come up with the idea of the carnival and all these Joker's cards and all this stuff on my own? He's like, you have to, and you see artists in almost every medium. The really great ones seem to say the same thing. And I think that is internally humbling if you let it be. And I think that's the biggest reckoning with ego, is realizing like the great idea you had, you didn't actually necessarily create. You just happened to be there to catch it.
It's about the bigger picture. And when I do die, I want people to like be like, wow, like that person inspired a lot of people to find their own true self and be comfortable with who they are. That's all I want. Yes. Because it's my whole journey has been about loving myself and being comfortable with myself. And that's all I have ever wanted. And expressing myself in a fun way and finding joy and like genuine joy and like this gift of being alive. And that's all I ever want. People to be able to be inspired to consume less and create more. That's something I always talk about. And I have that Jello Biafra quote I try to put in all my albums that he had in his spoken word album, No More Cocoons. He says, anyone could have made this record. Now go do your own. I've put that in every lyric book. I quote Jello Biafra. So go make your own podcast, go make your own whatever, because the world wants your weird, maybe stupid idea. And if you make enough of them, maybe you'll reach enough people for them to do their own version of that, and then we can smash the patriarchy and destroy capitalism.
The thing that makes the biggest impact is living as an example of something. And I think you are an example of what you preach. The best example of what you think an artist should do is by just looking at what you're doing. You're putting out 2 songs a month. You're keeping prolific. You're pursuing the things that you're interested in. You're keeping in good touch with your fans. You're like, it's funny, people kind of are hoping that there's this secret resource book to understand like how to crack the code. But all you have to do is look at the people that you love or look at the people that you respect. The example of what they're doing is the secret. Like, that is the code.
If you really believe in that stuff, show it by being a good, humble, patient person,
Yes.
I mean,
Exactly.
no one has the answers, and that's kind of what makes life fun. And anyone who thinks they do is full of crap, and they're trying to sell you something. It's called a confidence game, right?
Well, yeah, exactly, man. I mean, we get something out of this whole thing. It's amazing to me when I think about how much of my life has been influenced by meeting you and spending time around you, even when stretches of time have gone by when there's been a break in something, you know? It's crazy.
What do you think was the worst show we ever played together?
Do you remember the time we played at this weird little bar in Philadelphia? We were on with these bands who definitely were not, they were like, would have been like Lilith Fair bands or something at the time. It was like if we had played with Ani DeFranco and Ani DeFranco's crowd was there, and then we got up there and we're like, hey, here we go. You know, nobody wanted to see us. I just remember like all the bands were like these really like strong feminist bands. And then it's like, here's a bunch of dudes coming up here and rapping about whatever. I mean, nobody cared. But I think but at the same time, after that, we went and I saw one of the most quintessential Lars moments that I ever remember. We went out to a bar afterwards, and you got up and we were in like a fairly hardcore section of Philadelphia, and you just got up and you play that funky music, White Boy, on the jukebox and just started dancing in the middle of the room. I was just like, who has the guts to do that? It was like Young Jock's birthday party. It was just like, who has the gall to do this? It was amazing.
We survived. Oh boy.
The one thing we were always good at was making it fun, even when it wasn't fun. Those moments, you know, I heard somebody say something the other day that was like, it was actually Ozzy Osbourne who said it. He's like, you know, the most fun you'll ever have in a band is when you're just getting started and everything's new and everything's exciting. And then the moment everybody starts making money and the moment you start having the expectations, that they all kind of fall apart. And there are ways to navigate it, but I understand what he's saying. Like those early days when we were just doing it, it was so much fun. It was so novel. It just was like, it was, you know, you roll up to, you know, Ground Zero in Spartanburg and you're like, why not? You know what I mean? Like, but it's like, how do you keep that energy? Like, I feel like that's a key energy to be able to remember, like, you know, at a certain point it can become your job. I mean, this is our job.
Right.
But you can't lose the fun of it before it's your job.
Well, and I think most people do lose the fun, and that's why probably it's safe to say most bands that are formed don't last more than a few years. And
yeah.
You always said something like, you do it even if you weren't making money. You do it because you have to. And I think
Absolutely.
that's been my thing. And let's end with Bruce Campbell. This was the first thing I did with Schaefer. It was with this guy, Zealous One, who's a former nerdcore dude. And it was with Whitey Cracker. It was on the Dewey Decibel. I'm sorry. It was on the Digital Gangster album. And it was the first song I think we did for Digital Gangster.
Yeah. And then those shows with Front a Lot when that album first, that whole time, it was amazing. I wish more people could see it.
It was a good moment. And definitely Front a Lot has mixed emotions about some of those shows. But Whitey Cracker was fun to work with because he let me kind of take command of this branding and he's a good collaborator in that, especially during the early years. Like the same way that when Megaran and I get along well, he kind of lets me lead the charge on the branding and like the focus. Like that was like, I'm happy. And K-Flay in a way, when we did that record, she was happy to like, well, that was kind of like a two-headed beast that had a finite life. But like Whitey Cracker's fun to work with because he's a great rapper and he kind of just went along with it. And it was always fun playing these songs. So when we did this song at Nerdapalooza 2009, all four of us, plus DJ and John and you, right? It was like, that was awesome. That was like a moment. And I wish we had the live version, but we don't. This is the remastered version that we did for the Friend of Lorian's compilation that you can find on Bandcamp. And Mike Russo, what's your Instagram again?
The Dangerous Sacred.
All right, so here is Do the Bruce Campbell featuring Mike Russo on guitar. And yeah, man. I'm MC Lars. Thanks for interviewing me on the MC Lars podcast.
See ya.
Wait, what's that noise? Whitey Cracker, are those zombies? Zombies in the studio. This is our horrorcore song because it's got zombies on it. Sounds like a horrorcore song. You know who should get on this track to help us out? I'm thinking Zealous One and Schaefer the Dark Lord. Heck yeah. What should we call it, Lars? I think we should call it Bruce Campbell.
Fresh from the cemetery, I'm a terrifying sight, with little bits of bloody flesh stuck to my mind. I will ruin you, reduce you to a puddle where you stand, once I tear into your torso with my cold dead hands. Blood, sweat, and tears from your wounds start spewing. Fill a water bottle, swallow all your bodily fluids. You were nailed to a wall, full of holes like a dartboard. Still think you're hardcore? Bow to your dark lord. Splatter from the axe turns a blue shirt red. Severed head in a vice inside of my work shed. Dead heads get brains, in heads get chained. I annihilate you, then I violate your remains. You choked and you froze cause you got so scared. Toss your body in the cellar, I hope you rot down there. Where upon your meat screams awful goblins feed. Bleed death, but never mind the act, just bleed.
Get on the floor and do the Bruce Campbell. Get on the mic, light the jump like a candle. 4 MCs for more than you can handle. Do the Bruce Campbell. Get on the floor and do the Bruce Campbell. Get on the mic, light the jump like a candle. 4 MCs for more than you can handle. Protect your neck and do the Bruce Campbell. Brains, not the kind that you get in the back of a car at the drive-in, but the kind where the hide in and fear. Laid up in the creaky house where the people shout, not in the living dead instead. Boom, boom, rising, they're surprising every chick with the shirt torn off. Got an axe with the blade worn off. They roam in the shadows, split they mail, and I'm telling, talking about the zombies stalking victims with a stick 'em up. Dead flesh rotting, don't pick them up. On the side of the road to get yourself through. Become one of them and walk all slow. On the quest for the gray matter, nothing better than a mind like mine when the zombies die. Get on the floor and do the Bruce Campbell. Get on the mic, light the jump like a candle. 4 MCs for more than you can handle. Do the Bruce Campbell. Get on the floor and do the Bruce Campbell. Get on the mic, light the jump like a candle. 4 MCs for more than you can handle. Protect your neck and do the Bruce Campbell.
Back from the dead, got a bullet in my head, and 37 more from the buckshot spread. Suicidal thoughts like frost in your spine. The dragon won't sleep till your soul's all mine. Cut the flesh, blood spiller will entice me. I promise when I carve my name, I'll do it very nicely, precisely. Show you ladies I'm the best at this. I got them screaming for the zealous and the sexist. Don't mess with this, you just can't hide. Ain't gonna stop till the knife's inside. Twist to the left, let me see your eyes. Twist to the right, I wanna taste you die. I stalk MCs who are not believers. Make a microphone stand out of both the femurs. I love screamers, so let's go. Give me some sugar, baby, and do the Bruce Campbell.
Jeffrey Dahmer, here's my story. You abhor me, you deplore me, much too gory, violent glory. But this never would have happened if you hadn't ignored me. You laughed at me and my fat retainer. Now your son's stew is frozen in my refrigerator. If you just said hello when I passed in the hall, I wouldn't be stacking on your dead boyfriend Paul. It's just another day at the Ambassador Hotel. Milwaukee's best travel bagger, please north south. Shrunken head, severed limbs, I'm bad belligerent. Murderous cannibal, far from innocent. The Dahmer dinner party is the best, it's true. And everywhere I go, I'll take a part of you. There's a key downstairs and your name's on it. I'll get the stains out, you bring the comet. Get on the floor and do the Bruce Campbell. Get on the mic, light the drum like a candle. 4 MCs for more than you can handle. Do the Bruce Campbell. Get on the floor and do the Bruce Campbell. Get on the mic, light the drum like a candle. 4 MCs for more than you can handle. Take your neck and do the Bruce Campbell. Get on the floor and do the Bruce Campbell. Get on the mic, light the drum like a candle. 4 MCs for more than you can handle. Do the Bruce Campbell. Get on the floor and do the Bruce Campbell. Get on the mic, light the drum like a candle. 4 MCs for more than you can handle. Take your neck and do the Bruce Campbell.
What a great interview, Mike. If you ever get your own podcast, I'm freaking listening every week. Great host, fun talking about some of that stuff, fun talking about all of it. And yeah, that was special. So next week, I am talking to MC Snacks, who's a Canadian juggalo nerdcore rapper, homie of mine, who actually helps me produce the Hatchet Chat series. And he's just one of my favorite friends I've met touring. Just, you know, through the, we kicked it for the first time at the Dark Carnival Games convention in Denver. And we kind of built a friendship over the years. We've worked on a few songs together, 3 songs, I think. And anyway, he's a great guy. The interview's long, so it's in 2 parts. So the next 2 weeks are with MC Snacks, mclars.com for all my updates, patreon.com/mclars to get those rare songs. I'm dropping my Age of Ultron song. Check that out. I love you all. Stay safe. You know, it looks like by June, late June, this hopefully will all be over. Okay, love y'all. Talk to you soon. Bye.